Hi everybody! In this video I'm going to go through an exercise where we can practice writing selection statements and develop a Boolean function that's going to return true or false, just like the ones that you've been reading about in Chapter 7. So here I am on the course webpage. I'm going to scroll down to the course schedule where I can get to the selection reading assignment. And if you click in there, you'll see that I've added some activities at the bottom of the page here that you can complete. And I think doing these would be a great and fun, I think, test of your understanding of the material and your ability to develop programs. Because a big skill here is not just understanding the Python statements, but also what is the process of developing a program when the problem you're solving is getting more and more complex. So in this one, we'll solve a pretty simple problem, but these activities, I would say, get more and more complex, and that they're going to have different parts that you're going to have to work on separately, get one working, and then get another part working, and in the end, you'll have a full solution. But today we'll just do this first activity. So in this activity, we're going to write a function that tells us whether one card can be played on top of another in Uno. So Uno is a card game. You don't need to know how to play it to do this activity. But the basic idea in Uno is you're trying to get rid of your cards, and you do that by, when it's your turn, you play if you have a card that you can play, you play it on top of the last card that was played. And so this function is going to determine whether one card can be played on top of the other. So each card has a color, red, yellow, green, or blue, and it has a value, 0 through 9. And one card can be played on top of the other as long as the numbers match, the colors match, or both. So for example, if I have a card that has a number 1 and a color red, I can play that on top of a number 2 red, but I can't play it on top of a 2 green because nothing matches. So you are given a prompt in this where you're going to need to complete this function. Legal play takes in 4 parameters, and let's just copy this over to idle. So I'll create a new file here in idle, and I'm just going to paste in that function definition that we need to fill in. And I'll go ahead and save this. I'll call it uno.py. You can call it whatever you want to call it. And I'll save it in my CSCI 127 folder. And I did notice, if I go back to the webpage, that there are some test cases provided for us. We see that legal play of 3 blue, 3 green should return true. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that in here. And maybe I'll just print this out so that I can see what this returns, because I know it should be true, right? And so now that I have that set up, let me just try to run this and see what happens. So I get an error, right? That's because inside my function, I always need at least one indented line. And a comment doesn't count, right? So even though in the end I want my function to tell me whether or not the input is a legal play, for now I'm actually just going to have this return false so that I have something running and every time I make a change, I have a working program in that it runs, and I will get closer to the solution. So now I'm going to run this, and I see that it prints out false, but I want this to be true, right? So if you have not done this exercise on your own yet, and you're just watching this video, I would encourage you to pause it and work on this on your own and see if you can work out a solution. Then you can restart and see my solution, and I'll probably give actually a couple solutions. So pause if you need to. Otherwise, if you've already done this, I'll proceed. So, so we want to develop our function to do this correctly, right? So we don't want to just return false. So to start off, let's just write a comment saying what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and just look back. So if the numbers match, the colors match, or both, we should return true, right? Return true if numbers match, colors match, or both. Otherwise, return false. And I'll just go ahead and capitalize that. So, in order to check that the numbers match, let's say, what do I need to do? Well, I need to use an if statement, and so I start that with an if keyword. I say if first value is equal to, using the equality operator, equal to the second color, oops, then what? I could return true at that point, right? I already know that my these cards can play on top of each other. Another thing that could happen that I need to check for is if the first color is equal to the second color, then I should also return true, right? Because that would be a valid play. So, and then if neither of those things are true, then I should return false. So let's just go ahead and see if this works. And can anybody spot why this does not work? The reason is that I meant to write if first value equals second value, then I should return true. Oops. And if first color equals second color, then I should return true. So I just sort of mistyped what I wanted there. But that's an important part of the whole process, so glad you got to see that. Let's go ahead and run it, and now we get true. So it seems like we have a working program. Another thing I think that would be nice to do at this point is to add in some additional test cases. So we also know from the activity description that 5 yellow, 7 yellow should also return true. So let's go ahead and paste that in here. And we also have an example that should return false. So let's just go ahead and paste that in as well. And let's see if our current solution gets the right answer for all of these. So we know that this should be true, this should be true, and this should be false. So let's go ahead and run. And we got the right answer, so that's great. Next, I want to show how we could change this solution. This would be totally fine, but just to show some Python syntax and how we could make this shorter, let's try to make this into an if-else statement. So let's say use an if-else. So if I want to use an if-else, I want sort of there to be one case where I return true and one case where I return false, right? If something, return true, otherwise return false. So what is that something that needs to be true? Well, I need either the first value to equal the second value or for the first color to equal the second color. And so now I can write this as an if-else. And I know what this condition is, right? So I could write it in. If values equal or colors equal, return true. Otherwise, return false. All right, let's see if this runs and if we still get the right answers. Great. We got true, true, and false. So the last little challenge that I would pose to you here is to see whether you can implement this using only one line. Last challenge, use only one line inside the function. So what that's going to look like is we're going to have a line here, and this is what fill in one line. So I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but if you figure it out, I would love for you to post on the Slack in the random channel